All right, guys, we are going to talk about altruism. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I sometimes struggle with this. Yeah, altruism. Um, yeah, I'm gonna get ready to kind of talk to you guys about that. I just got a couple things that I got to get prepared, but while I am doing that, and also just to ease you into the topic, I'm going to have some music playing for you guys just to kind of intro things. Thank you again for tuning in for another edition of Croco's or look at me, mental maintenance, which is a part of Croco's Corner, but mental maintenance specifically. All right, guys. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me for another edition of Croco's Corner Mental Maintenance. I keep saying the Croco's Corner, so I just started rolling with it. Again, as I said before, we are going to discuss altruism. Um, this is a fun one for me in a way because I do feel like I try. Even the reason why I started this show is kind of more in my altruistic nature. Um, so I'm really excited to talk about this one. It's not, oh, excuse me, it's not really like a depressing topic per se. It is more so not. I shouldn't say depressing, but it's not a negative attribute facing topic. It is more of a positive attribute, but it does have some negatives. I'm just going to kind of dive right in. I don't have too much to say, but I just kind of wanted to give you guys a little clue in on exactly what this is and exactly how it works. Some of you may not be familiar with it. I was very briefly familiar with it, and yet it was something that does, in a sense, play a part in my life. So I was like, I probably should talk about this one if I barely knew about it. But yeah, just to kind of dive in again, it won't be too long of a show here, but I did want to get something out to you guys. Um, I have the definition as an unselfish concern for other people. That is according to verywellmind.com. Another definition that I have here, this comes from Merriam-Webster, is unselfish regard for or devotion to the welfare of others. And then another definition that I have here is willingness to do things that bring advantages to others, even if it results in disadvantages for yourself. And that's where we'll kind of talk about the negatives, but we'll get there when we get there. Um, Difference between in a previous show we talked about apathy, and I kind of said that altruism and apathy are in some ways kind of like the is like different things on a different like the different sides to a coin in a way. Um, so I did kind of want to talk about that a little bit further, but apathy is more or less as we said before in the show, apathy is the absence of emotion. Again, going back to the emotional apathy, if you listen to the previous show, it's kind of more centered or focused on that. Where altruism is the unselfish regard for, or again, the devotion to the welfare of others. Couple questions that I have here: is altruism a medical disease? I don't think that it is in the same way that apathy is. apathy actually can be considered a medical disease or condition. Whereas with altruism, it maybe in some of the more negative lights, it could become something where it is like a mental or a neurodivergent kind of behavior. But from everything that I can see, it is just a characteristic or expression that can kind of be tied from a emotion or neurodivergent or a neurological behavior, I should say. Let me see here. Can altruism be a negative thing? Yes, it can. As defined in that last definition, what we can do is we can actually cause ourselves to not like neglect ourselves, which if we have neglect for ourselves, then that can be a negative thing. Like we should, it's a wonderful thing to kind of put people first and to, figure out how you can be there for others in the best, in the best capacity that you can. But keyword there, that you can, or phrase there, that you can. You have to still, part of being able to do things for others means that you have to still look out for yourself. And some people just need kind of a wake up call in hearing that. So that was pretty much the biggest reason why I wanted to talk about this topic, is because I am guilty of this a lot too. I sometimes put people way ahead of myself, and you got to kind of figure out where you can have your own happiness for your own actions and your own things. Before, where you, in certain instances, have to put that before what you necessarily do for others. And we'll go more into just like the negatives and positives with altruism. But before I do that, I wanted to give some examples, of altruism, so that way you can have a better understanding of exactly how it works and what it exactly looks like. One example that I have here is giving something up for the benefit of the other. Very simple. This can mean giving up your lunch to help someone on the street. I've seen this before. I think it's a terrific thing. One of my best friends actually did this, and it was like one of the more defining moments in my life for me to understanding how I should care about people more. Another example of this can be donating clothes or any other material without any expectation of reward. So, for you people, when myself included, but whenever you go down to like the Salvation Army, or you go to a local food bank and you're just kind of donating clothes and whatnot, you are expressing altruism. And I think that's a good thing, The third one is rejecting something that may benefit you but cause harm to others is maybe a negative in regards to this. I think I might have these. Oh, well, yeah, I guess it could still apply, but it just would be a negative. Yeah, I guess it in this sense, you are putting other people ahead of yourself, but yeah, that will be one of the negative things to it. I guess I might have some of these out of order. An example of this is not applying for a higher position if only one person will be selected, thus leaving room for someone else. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So that would be, I can see where that would be a form of altruism is, that, hey, I'm applying for this job. This job is only for one person. I may be qualified, I may not, but I do have some doubts or concerns. So why not just leave this for people who may be in more of a need than I am for this job? I could see where that could definitely be a form of altruism. I might have written it wrong as well. Another example that I have here is, and let me just check really quickly because I think I do still have this up. This is all coming from highfivetest.com. This is who kind of helped me to get some of these examples together. So I wanted to make sure I gave credit where credit was due. The next one that I have here is helping others even when it puts you in danger. Again, altruism can be really nice, but it can have a lot of negatives to it as well. An example of this would be helping a grandmother cross the road, even if there is heavy traffic. So, you in this example, you're trying to put this grandmother above yourself and your safety. But, at the end of the day, is it even something where you might mentally be thinking that you're putting this person above yourself, but in a sense, isn't it more appropriate to say that you're putting each other at harm? So see, this is where it can be kind of difficult. It can get a little bit more nuanced. The next one that I have here is sharing your products even if you do not have much for yourself. Or as an example, in a drought, sharing your water supply. Definitely can see where that would be a form of altruism. And the last one that I have here is being concerned with another person's well-being above your own. If you are sick, an altruistic person would care more about other family members' illnesses than they would their own suffering. This is me. This one right here is me. When I am sick, I put everybody else above me being sick. I don't want them to get sick. I will do anything and everything that I can to try to ensure that they aren't sick. Meanwhile, I'm the one that actually is sick and probably should be prioritizing myself a little bit. So again, just kind of giving you some examples of, where you got to kind of think about those things a little bit deeper. Next thing that I have here is just ways altruism can be negative. It can sometimes create risk. People may engage in altruistic acts that can place them in danger. Again, when we use that example of the grandma walking across the road with crossing the street with heavy traffic, you're putting yourself at danger. And I would even go a little bit further than that. You're putting the elderly woman, grandmother at danger or at risk of danger as well. Another example of this, another way that altruism can be negative, it may sometimes lead people to neglect their own health, social, or financial needs in order to care for others. Got to be careful. You got to be able to still engage in your own happiness, right? So that means that you got to be able to sit there and be like, okay, I have to be able to have a social life. I have to be able to financially take care of myself. I have to be able to be in good health in order for not only you to continue doing those things, but also so that way you can nurture your own happiness, your own peace, and your own well-being. So, we got to think about these things. Next one I have here is, while acts of altruism may be done with good intention, they don't always lead to positive outcomes. So again, going back to the example with the elderly woman crossing the street, or the grandma crossing the street, your intentions is to help this elderly woman so that way she doesn't harm herself, or she doesn't have, she doesn't end up hurting, just hurting herself, period, right? Or hurting somebody else in the process or whatever. You're just trying to avoid a negative situation. But again, if it is that high traffic and you are doing this, the actions that you're choosing to do, which you had good intentions on doing, now could even create a larger problem if it isn't done correctly, if it isn't done in the right way. So it doesn't always have to lead to a positive outcome. If you cause a traffic accident, or you cause yourself and that elderly woman, granny, to get hurt, then it didn't really lead, everything that you did with, again, the purest of intentions didn't exactly lead to a positive outcome. The next thing that I have here is, it may lead people to focus their efforts on one cause while neglecting others. Another great example where altruistic behaviors can kind of be negative. There's other things that you may be able to do that can facilitate that positive nature, that selfless nature that you have in yourself. And you don't want to spread yourself too thin in one area, because if you do that, then again, you could go back to that previous point, lead to more negative outcomes from what you thought would be you satisfying one positive outcome. And you just don't want to do this. You want to be able to make sure that you are putting yourself in the best position to do the most good. Like, that is typically a lot of our business. I work out of business, and a lot of businesses, they try to model that. I don't know how much of that is true today, but I do know that a lot of the teachings that you do learn when you are in business, and you're getting an education in regards to business, when you start to talk about things like business ethics and business morality, it's the idea of doing the greatest amount of good for the greatest number of people. So, I do believe that there is a lot of value at times in doing that. It is a more nuanced conversation that we won't be getting into on this topic. But it is something where you do kind of want to consider that, at least when it comes to altruism. Is there a way that you can take the positive action, the selfless action that you are trying to actually show, and make sure that it can have the largest benefit for the largest amount of people, without having too much of a neglect to others, without having too much of a neglect to yourself? Is there, it's just kind of thinking about that before you actually engage in what you are doing out of, again, the purest of intentions. um, Let me see, what do I have here? So yeah, the example that I had here of how it can be negative, and again, kind of tying into some of these other points that we mentioned before. People who work in helping professions may find themselves emotionally overwhelmed by caring for and helping others. Again, it touches on a lot of those points that we used before. You're neglecting yourself. You're possibly creating what could end up leading to a negative outcome. um, and you're not your efforts are focused in one area where you may still have, like, if you work in a healthcare or helping profession, as they put it here, you might be neglecting your family, you might be neglecting your friends, and again, we're fostering more negative outcomes than we are positive when we're not properly applying, and as the things that I looked at put it, moderating those altruistic behaviors that we have. The next example that I have here is a person who altruistically adopts animals may shift into animal hoarding, reaching a point where they can no longer house or care for the animals they have taken. And we recently had this whole debacle with, like, the lady with 7 cats, or the cat lady. But that's the first thing that it made me think of. When I see people who foster a lot of cats, as an example, I do think that what they're doing with the best of intentions. They're trying to prevent these cats from being strays, which is like a really big thing. That's like around the world. It's like the idea of a stray cat is like very, very common and very, very normal. So when you have these people that are taking a bunch of these cats and raising them, giving them food, giving them foster, giving them just the things that they need, the intentions are great, but you have to also think on the other side of that where exactly the neglect comes in. You may need to make, if you were a cat lady in this regard who has 17 cats, you may need to look at what steps of preparation you can put in place to ensure that you aren't causing a harmful environment for not only the animals, but for yourself, for your friends, for your family, and anybody else who may be associated with your home. So just, these are good things to think about. Think about, simply, if you want to put it in more simple terms, just think about how, your caring nature, you may have to have more preparation and more thought. And your selfish nature, the elements of yourself where you express a more selfless nature, what preparation have you put into that to ensure that it can have the greatest outcome for the greatest number of people? Ways that altruism can be positive. And what I love about this is a lot of the things that I was looking at, they really made an emphasis to put in moderation. In moderation. And the list that I have here has, in moderation, it can first boost your confidence. I agree with this 100%. Anytime that I can do something that's selfless, it makes me feel better about myself. It makes me feel like, wow, I am proud of the person that I am in this moment. So if you feel like you lack moments where you can have a little bit more pride and confidence in yourself, maybe look towards where you can be more altruistic. The next thing that I have here is decreased stress and mortality. Yeah, so the more positive energy, I'm a big believer. Ooh, hold on. Sorry about that. I don't know if you guys heard that or not, but I just got a phone call. Anybody who experiences a decrease, or anybody who experiences the joy and the emotions that come from and bliss, even, that comes from performing things in a selfless nature, you can help. I believe that those things can help, and not just with altruistic behaviors, but just things that you could do in the name of good. I'm a spiritual and religious person, so I phrase that as things you could do in the name of God. These things are things that can make more positive energy around you. And I believe that the more positive energy you have, the less stress you can have. The less stress you can have, the more you are helping your overall health. We don't really talk that often about how damaging stress can be to our bodies, and how damaging stress can be to just our entire being, mentally, spiritually, and physically. I feel as if stress is one of the biggest things that diminishes the actual person who we are. So performing more selfless and altruistic roles in our lives can be something that I absolutely can see helping us to decrease that stress and the mortality rate that may exist with us personally. The next thing that I have here is generally feel good for looking after someone else. Yeah, it just sometimes feels good to care about your neighbor. When we talked about apathy in our one of the other podcasts that I either posted before or after this one. But if you do get a chance to listen to the apathy podcast, you'll hear me talk a lot about how I do feel like it is important for us to care about our neighbors. And I feel like it can foster a better world and a better environment, not only for those people that surround us, but it can also do these things for us. So it is definitely worth considering for us to try to be more selfless in regards to our neighbor and the people around us, because it can ultimately create a really good feeling in yourself, and at the same time you could do a lot of things that could foster a lot of great changes and developments in your own community, which ultimately has an impact on you and your happiness. Again, I'm keeping this one kind of short because I just wanted to do a little quick show on this more positive aspect. I think that in most cases people do use this very positively, and we, even though I know that we all may struggle with instances where we do abuse it in regards to how we treat ourselves and the outcomes that can come from us having a more altruistic behavior and nature. But I did want to just talk about this because I think that it is good to remind yourself that it is like a superpower that we are afforded when we can be selfless for others, and when we can express that great side in the energy and in the world. And again, if you're a religious person like me, where you can express God more in the world, I do believe that those things are really, really good for us, and is something that we should just think about more and put a little bit more time on, for the simple fact that it can make the world a better place, and it can make us be at more peace as well. Thank you guys again for tuning in for another edition of Mental Maintenance on Croco's Corner. We're going to be having more shows that are going to be coming out. I'm sorry, my time has just been a little spread out, so that's the only reason why it's been so late since the last time we had some shows. Be sure to check out our Instagram as well, where I'll be putting up different things that'll kind of relate to some of the topics that we talk about on the show. In addition to that, there will be things that will kind of help to educate you either further, or that can educate you on just different numerous topics that relate to mental health and mental maintenance, things that we can do to improve our mental state and give us a better shot at doing the things that will make us successful in life. So again, guys, make sure you check out the Instagram page just to be able to see some of those things as well. I'm going to wrap up with that, but if you're listening to this during the week, if you're listening to this during the weekend, day, night, whatever, I hope that you have a wonderful rest of the day, wonderful rest of the week, wonderful rest of the weekend. And I hope that this was able to kind of do something to boost how you look at yourself during this time. I'm gonna let you guys kind of ride out to some music. And yeah, take care.